So it's my big pleasure to welcome Lee Morris, formerly of Paradise Lost, now playing with Magnum, to Product of the Working Class this afternoon. How are things in Wigan, fella?
Hey, Kel. All right, mate. Not too bad. The sun's out, so it's not. I'm stuck inside, but the sun's out. But no, it's okay, mate. Not too bad.
Awesome. Good. Well, thank you very much for joining me this afternoon, fella. I really
You're very welcome.
appreciate it. Really appreciate it. I know we've had a few messages back and forward trying to get things organised. And I
Oh
know
gosh,
you're
yeah.
you're a busy man.
Well, better late than never. We got there in the end, as they say.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, so like I said, welcome to the show and what we're
Good,
going to be
mate.
doing and what we're going to talk about this afternoon. So, if it's all right with you, kind of like to delve into when you started drumming, and I know you started drumming from quite an early age, your influences, and then your kit preferences,
Yeah.
and then career highlights, or just generally your experience in music as it's been for the last 30 plus years. You know, um,
You said like that. Sounds like a long time, doesn't it? Flipping heck.
but an exciting time. That's the way to look
Oh
at
yeah,
it.
absolutely, absolutely.
And I can't wait to delve into some of those things that we've already briefly had a chat about through text messages without me geeking out too much.
That's okay. We're talking drums. We can geek it all we want, mate. Let's talk
Awesome.
about.
That's what I like. That's what I like to hear, mate. That's what I like to hear. So let's get started. So nitty gritty. I know you started drumming like when you were quite young, didn't you?
Yeah.
Um, but what was the what? How did that come about? What was the main
Well,
thing for
the
it?
simple fact was my dad was a drummer.
Oh,
So
awesome.
my dad used to play like around working men's clubs and stuff when I was younger. And I always used to go and watch him play. And I think he just wanted to have me as a cheap roadie, really, because I used to help him set up with all his drum kits and everything. So I'd set up the kit, and I used to sort of just play a little, just tap a little bit. Couldn't play anything. I just hit drums, randomly, and then that was it. And then during these shows, I used to just sit on the front of the stage, and I'd be looking back at what my dad was doing, and my dad said I should just try and copy what he was doing with my hands. I had no drum skills at this point, just trying to copy what he was doing. And I remember this old guy who was playing a working men's club. He came up to me on the front of the stage and he gave me 50p because I sat there all night, miming to my dad. He said, "Oh, you worked really hard tonight, lad. It is 50p." And I thought it was a light bulb moment. And I thought, "Oh, I could make some money out of this. This could be okay." I never made any money since, but I thought that was, that was the start of it. And that was it. And then I kind of, my dad sort of brought a drum kit home, and he showed me like some basic stuff. He was into Queen and Cliff Richard and the Beatles, all that kind of stuff. So he showed me some basic, some basic drum stuff. He had an old Premier Olympic aquamarine
Oh
kit,
yeah.
like
Okay.
a Ringo kit. One
Yeah.
tom,
Yeah.
16-inch floor tom, like a Zinn sizzle cymbal, which had all the rivets in it. Which I took them all
Yeah.
out to send it to the right cymbal. And then I just started sort of listening to records. I just sort of, just tried to listen to records and figure out what was going on and try and work it out. And it kind of went from there, really. So that's when I first started.
Awesome. That's really cool. But I think it's important having that. What's that moment when you suddenly realise this is what I want to do.
Oh gosh,
And
yeah,
I mean I can remember like what it was like for me. And I was a bit of a late starter when it came to playing drums. I was in my teens, and
gosh,
I tried learning to play guitar. And the
yeah,
guy that was teaching me to play guitar only wanted to do Bob Dylan and stuff like that. Of course,
yeah,
I grew up like yourself in a time when Guns N' Roses and Def Leppard ruled the planet,
yeah,
and
yeah,
so that's what I wanted to play. But he wasn't interested, so I was like,
no,
well, that's not for me. And then met this kid at college, and he was getting rid of this Premier Club drum kit, and it should have been cherry red, but it was brown because it was that dogged.
yeah, yeah.
It was really beating up this
But he's
thing.
rustic. That's okay.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. So new heads, and that was it. Never, I haven't looked back, and I'm still drumming now. And so it's just nice having those to be able to share a moment and go, wow,
Oh gosh,
how
yeah, yeah.
how cool, you know.
When
Um,
I first started, because my dad lived in a block of flats, we lived on the fourth floor of a block of flats, and obviously he brought this kit home for me. But obviously, we couldn't play in the flat because it was so noisy. So he actually made me. He took it. I don't know how he did it, but he took the skins off and he put cardboard, this thick cardboard, where the skin should have been, and that's how I started playing, just like on a cardboard kit, basically, where the skin should have been. So it was just dead quiet, and it didn't sound very good. But we had this really old stereo with these massive speakers, huge thing. But you had a big drawer you had to pull out to get the stereo out of work. Oh, So super high class equipment, mate. It really was.
But there's nothing quite like that, is there? You know, when you stick it on a record, I used to do the same thing. You know, stick it on, crank it up, and try and play along to those bands that you love listening to,
Oh my gosh, yeah,
and like being a part of it,
yeah,
and just enjoying. You know, whether it be, you know, when you're pretending to be Ringo, or you know, I used to pretend I was
yeah,
Rick Allen. And I used to try and play with one arm, and
yeah,
start. Yeah, because that was what I wanted to do. I wanted to be like those guys,
yeah,
and it's just, and when you get it right and it sounds right,
yeah.
it's an amazing feeling.
Well, that's the start of the dream, isn't it? You know, you sort of you hear these guys doing it, and then you close your eyes and you play along with these songs, and you try to visualize what it would be like to be there. And I think
Yeah,
that's when you start thinking, "Oh, I really want to do this. This is what I
mm,
want to do." You know, and
yeah,
you kind of once you set on that path, then I think that there's no stopping you. Then I mean, I was so like that tunnel vision. There was nothing else I wanted to do. And even through school, I mean, I got back into magic education later on, but even through school, I wasn't interested. I used to sky off and go in the music room, and that's all I did was want to play drums all the time. And we had back in the day, you had these careers interviews.
yeah. I remember
When you
those.
go to what do you want to do when you leave school, and everybody was giving them all these great answers like, oh, I want to be an electrician, I want to be a mechanic, and all this guy. And I said, I want to be a rock star. And she just smirks. Said, well, that's not very realistic, is it? I said, well, I don't care. That's what I want to be. That's what I want to do. And I thought, well, that's it. I've set my stall out now. So what am I going to do now?
But I think that's it, and I think once you get a small taster for it, and and it gets even worse when you play with that band for the first time in a rehearsal,
Mm.
and it sounds all right, and you think,
Yeah,
God,
yeah,
we're making this noise together, and it actually
yeah,
feels really good,
yeah, yeah,
and that's the next part of the drug that kicks in,
yeah,
isn't
yeah.
it?
Well, that's it. When you join your first band and you get through that first song together, and you will start figuring out, sort of where your role is within the band and what you're supposed to be doing. It's amazing. I mean, the first band I was in, it was like a covers band. We did we had a Teddy Boy singer, and we did like all these Elvis songs, and we did all this. It was kind of weird. It was a weird band because we had like a Teddy Boy singer that used to do all these weird Teddy Boy dances. But yeah, the other guys were into rock, and the keyboard player was into Howard Jones and Nick Kershaw. So we kind of had quite a weird set list because we just threw everything at it. But it was, that was my initial sort of thing with bands, really.
So after that, Lee, how did it move on from that? So after that first band, what was the next step for you?
Well, that was it. Well, I mean, I started off, doing covers. I mean, I played like in like quite a few covers bands, playing around working men's clubs. I mean, I was only 16 at the time. And my granddad and granddad signed a HP agreement to give me my first drum kit, which was like a white pearl export kit. So, and I
Nice.
was out at weekends playing working men's clubs and stuff. So, I did that for a couple of years, but then I just got a bit disillusioned with playing covers and stuff, and I wanted to sort of actually sort of start playing stuff that being creative myself. So then I got into a few original rock bands. I was in a band called Royale. It was my first proper original band, and then I did that for a while, and then I ended up joining a band called Martial Law. And that was my first sort of originals band, and they had a deal. We were signed to like a small independent company called FM Revolver, based in Wolverhampton. And I think they'd just done their first album. They just supported Little Angels on tour. And then, I knew Roger, the bass player, because we both played on the local circuit, and we always said, "Oh, we'll get in the band together, me and because you latch onto bass players, don't you?" And he joined Martial Law first, then he recommended me. I ended up joining Martial Law, and that was it. We did our first sort of tours together, really, and those tours were just absolute sort of, you learn your trade, because we used to have this big white van. We used to drive to the first gig. We'd pack all the gear as flat as we could, and then we'd put a big piece of board across all the gear, and that was our bed for the night. So we'd drive to the gig. We'd all pile into the women's toilets because they were always cleaner than the men's. We'd all have a sink wash. We'd do a show, and then we'd have enough money for a bag of chips and fuel to the next show. We'd drive to the next show. We'd all get in the back of the van in our sleeping bags, sleeping head to toe,
Yeah.
and then you'd wait till the condensation in the morning came off the roof to wake you up for the morning. Then off you went again. It was just fun times. You live in the dream, and you believe in that. Oh, we're going to be the next Judas Priest, and this is going to be it. It kind of never worked out like that, obviously, but
No.
that was it.
That's awesome. What was it like touring with Little Angels? Because I was a massive
I,
fan of Little
I
Angels.
yeah, I didn't actually. I joined them sadly just after that tour, and which is
Gutted.
awful because I was a massive. I was a big fan of Michael Lee, who later became really good
Incredible
friends.
drummer.
Yeah, because I did actually audition for Little Angels, believe it or
Did
not.
you really?
Yes.
Was that after Dave Hopper left?
No, Michael was with the band,
Right.
and when
Okay.
Michael had sort of got the job with the Cults, he
Yeah.
called
Yeah.
me at
Yeah.
home and he told me that he'd got the job with the Cults, and he
Yeah.
said, you know, the job in Little Angels is coming, you know, you should go for it. And I was like, oh, that's great, but he says, you know, he says, but you probably won't get it. He says because me and you were both into drummers like Dean Castronova and all these,
Mm,
you know, these technical. But I think they wanted to go down a more of a sort of straight 4-piece kind of
yeah.
kit kind of route. So I said, well, okay. So I went down there with a producer called Steve Harris, who used to work at Slaughterhouse in Driffield.
Yeah.
And I did the audition, you know, I met the lads, you know, sort of got on well with everybody and did it. And it came down to me and Mark Richardson, I believe. And
Yeah.
obviously
Oh,
Mark was from
amazing.
Scarborough. He knew the band and I
Yeah.
think he'd always been playing with them. So, you know, that was that. But I mean, it was just great to get in and play with them, you know, a real nice bunch of guys. And, you know, and I was quite a big
Yeah.
fan of the band as well. So,
Yeah. No, that's awesome because I'm friends with Toby through Facebook and things, and he's been super helpful with different things.
oh, he's great, Darby.
And really lovely guy. And I got to see him on the Jam tour because I grew up down in Cornwall, so bands didn't come to
Yeah.
Cornwall apart from Magnum, which we'll talk about that a bit later.
Yeah.
But they just didn't come down there because it was too far to go. And anyway, on the Jam tour, Little Angels decided they played in Plymouth, so it was like amazing. So 90 summer of '93 it was,
Yeah.
and it's just absolutely brilliant. But obviously Mark was playing for the band then.
Yeah.
Michael had left, but yeah, it was amazing. Such a great. They were a
Great
good band.
band. One of
Really
those
good.
bands, I mean, they should have been a lot bigger than they were, really, because they're great
Absolutely.
songs, great players. It's just one of those bands. I remember, I think they suffered from the English syndrome because you get some bands that make it massive in England, you know, but then outside of England, they really struggle. You know what I mean? You get some bands that go outside of England, like Def Leppard did, and make it big there and then come back to England. And they can't sell it at all. And it's a very fine line, isn't it? You know?
Yeah, I think you're right. And they had a very big commercial sound. As well, you know, it's but then kind of all that 90s time was changing because obviously everything had been killed off from the tsunami of grunge, so everyone, it was only the really big full-on heavier bands like Paradise Lost, which we're going to come on to in a minute, and you know, Slayer and Megadeth and Metallica, they were the only ones that were really kind of selling shitloads of records, if you like, because it was the only thing that was, I suppose, out of the long-haired side of things, that was still living and breathing, if you like. Because all those other bands that, you know, I grew up on, they weren't getting a look. They were not even a sniff. You know, they were.
It's amazing how the scene just changed so much. I mean, obviously in the 80s, you had like Little Angels, your FMs, your Bon Jovis, you know, that all came in, and the grunge came in. And then, you know, obviously Guns N' Roses, that whole thing came in. And there's so many different scenes that just kept jumping one after the other.
Yeah.
You know, and it was kind of hard to always be relevant because, you know, the scene was just always changing so much. You know, and I think a lot of bands, you know, at the time were probably jumping, you know, to what was going on at the time to try and think, well, this is successful, we'll kind of jump onto this. And I think that never works. I think you just got to stay true to yourself and just think, well, this is what we do, you know, we'll just keep doing it. Maybe at some point it'll come back into fashion, you know.
Yeah, and I think you're absolutely right. And I think there's a lot to be said for that now. I think, you know, there are people who are willing to stand up and go, well, do you know what? I really like this style. And because of that, I want to buy it and I want more of that. It's not just and I think that well, music's more accessible now than it's ever been because of streaming and everything like that, which has its good points and its bad points. You know, because I mean, back when we were growing up, you had to invest in your music because
I still do now. I'm a complete dork, you know. I don't do streaming. I still buy physical albums. I still buy CDs, you know, and I still sit there looking at all the albums like I did back in the 80s, you know, getting your Iron Maiden album out and looking at every single inch of it to try and find that Derek Riggs kind of thing on there, you know. I mean, I'm still just as much a fan as I was then, you know. Doesn't change just because you play yourself, I don't think.
No, I think this is it. I think it's just, but it's good having that and that. But you know, there are kids now that don't have that. They don't know what that's like unless they've been unless they've been shown by somebody in their family or whatever. They've had an interest in vinyl or whatever. They don't look at it in the same way, you know. No, it's definitely a funny old thing. So after martial law, you joined Paradise Lost.
Well, I had a short stint playing with the guitar player called Robin George in between martial law.
Oh, okay.
I did that because he produced the last Martial Law album that I played on.
Right.
So I was working with him, and this is how the Paradise Lost thing came to be, because I was playing with Robin George band. We just done some demos, just done some recording, and then I had a phone call from a friend of mine up in Bradford who they had a band called Slam. And basically, I think for some reason they were doing some shows and their drummer couldn't do it. So I said, would I fill in just for these shows? So I'd finished recording my stuff with Robin. So I said, you know, it's okay if I go up there and do these shows. So I went up to Bradford. While I was in Bradford, another friend of mine called Soldier, who was the guitar player in a band called Excalibur, he called up and said, oh, Paradise Lost are after a drummer. So because I was in Bradford at the time, everything this domino effect of sort of circumstances that I ended up in Bradford. And he rang me and said, oh, Paradise Lost after a drummer. And my first response was, oh, who's Paradise Lost? God, I didn't know who they were. And that's the God's honest truth. You know, I was into bands like Toto and Iron Maiden and all this kind of stuff. And, you know, I wasn't really into this goth thing that was sort of just starting to have a massive surge.
Yeah, it was.
So he said, oh, no, you really need to sort of try and get an audition for this band. You know, they do really, really well in Europe. I said, oh, okay, fantastic. So I got some bits and pieces together, like a few recordings that I'd done in a photo, and I sent it off to Northern Music. And then I had a phone call saying, like, you know, the guys sort of liked your tape, you know, would you like to come down for an audition? You know, can you audition in a couple of days? And I thought, oh, right, okay. So I thought, well, I've got none of that material. So I went to a friend of mine who used to work in a shop called Mike Lloyd's Megastore in Wolverhampton. Now, at this point, bearing in mind, I had no money whatsoever, you know. So I went into the shop and I said, bit of a strange one, this, but can I borrow a couple of Paradise Lost CDs off you? So he lent me Icon and Seals of Sense. So I went back and I had like my little Sony Discman, and I thought, well, I was going to a show that night in the back of the van. I thought, right, I've got tonight to learn these songs ready for the audition. So I put my Discman on, and I'm thinking, oh gosh, there's a lot of complicated arrangements here. I know what I'll do. I'll write little vocal lines that will let me know. So it's that section takes you into that takes you into that. I thought, that's it. I've cracked it here. Got me cue points. But fantastic. Gets to the Paradise Lost audition. Nick the singer doesn't sing at the audition. They just have a full run through the music, no vocals. So I'm playing, looking around at the guys thinking, when does this next section come in? Not having a clue. So, I mean, I absolutely ruined 4 of their probably biggest songs, you know, in the world. You know, I'm surprised they didn't frog march me out of the building and shoot me, to be honest with you. But anyway, they said, well, you know, it's not fair to judge you because the other guys that have been in kind of knew the songs and they'd played them correctly. So they said, what we'll just jam some stuff that we've got for this new album that we've got coming out, which obviously was going to be Draconian Times. So we just jammed for about 2 hours. We were playing some stuff and they were playing me some riffs and things, and I was just putting some drums to it and stuff. And that was that. 2 hours later, I packed my drum kit up, said bye to everybody, and off I went. Got called back a second time. Obviously learned the songs properly this time. The first 4 I was supposed to do. Went in, played those songs okay, and then the guys were like, well, you know, let's have another jam. And so we just carried on. Like, this was the way it went. We had jam for 2 hours, and that happened. And so I went away again. You know, at this point, no one was really telling me anything. And then Nick said to me, you know, what are you doing next week? And I was like, well, I think I had 2 shows that week with that band Slam. I said, the rest of the week I've got nothing on. He says, well, you know, will you come down and just rehearse with us for the full week? And I thought, you know, at this point, again, no one was telling me anything. So I went down, you know, we carried on reaching. At this point, Greg wasn't there. I think he was away on holiday. And so we were just playing through the songs. And by the end of it, you know, we pretty much had most of Draconian Time, you know, musically done. And I went out for a beer with Nick one of the nights. I said, what's going on here? I said, yeah, no one's telling me anything. And he said, well, basically, you know, we've talked about it. You know, we all want you in, but, you know, Greg's going to make the final decision when he comes back off his holidays. So, you know, when he comes back, we'll have a run through, you know, see how everybody feels. And I thought, oh, great, because I thought, I know they're in the studio soon to do this album. I thought they're just going to use me for the album, and then that'll be, you know, he's the only person who can do because he knows the song, so we'll get him in, and then that'll be the end of that. But then Greg came back, you know, we played a couple of songs through and just sort of took his guitar off, shook my hand and welcomed me on board, and then we just put the gear down, went to the pub and got pissed, and that was it. I was then a member of Paradise Lost.
Awesome, because that album, Draconian Times, is just stunning. And I love that. I remember buying that, and I bought it in a shop in Truro in Cornwall, which is where I used to live growing up, and called Solo Records. And it was right at the top end of the high street. And I went in there and bought it. And I had a mini Metro at the time with with big speakers in the parcel shelf. You know,
fully blinged out, did you?
Oh yeah. And I remember sticking it in and turning it up, and that opening track, and hearing it cut through, and I was like, man, that just sounds huge. I just loved it. And Nick's voice was very different on the record compared to like Icon and stuff. It was very different. There's a lot more melody in it. And And well, it just rung out to me. I just loved it, and yeah, I remember picking up my guitarist Stuart that evening for a band rehearsal, and I had it on, and he was like, "Oh, Kelv, what's this?" And I said, "Oh, it's a new Paradise Lost album." And he went, "Man, I love that." He said, "I'm digging that," and I was like, "Yeah, this is just cool, you know." And I listened to it for it just didn't leave the stereo for ages because it
Okay.
just absolutely loved it. So
It was just one of those albums when I think all the planets aligned. It just, for some reason, I think we just hit something at that point. And it was, I mean, even now, I mean, 30 years later,
mm,
so that people still ask me about that record. I think we all, like, as a musician, you want to be able to do one piece of work that has an effect on people that they'll, want to talk about. And I think for me, that was the one because, even now, people still ask about that record, ask about,
mm,
about certain drum fills or certain songs and certain things. It's just like,
yeah,
well, But it was just, I mean, they'd kind of already got that success with Icon, and it was just a case of, you push on from this and just see what happens. And I think, just the songs were great. The playing was great for everybody on that record. And I think it was everybody brought something to the table with that
mm,
record. I mean, the guys were, I've got to say, they were brilliant with me, because I only had like 2 weeks to pretty much learn the whole album before we went to record. And they gave me so much freedom and just basically said, so just do what you want, and it was great just to have that sort of, put your own
mm,
stamp on it, I guess.
yeah.
So no,
There's
it
one.
was a great time.
No, I can imagine. There's one of the songs, and I can't remember exactly the name of it, but I've been listening to it in the car today because I thought I need to listen to it, and for listening to it anyway. But before I was going to talk to you, and there's this one bit that really stood out to me today, and I don't think I really noticed it so much before. But you do this little drum fill. It's like got a and then it's you don't overcook the double kick. That's what I love about it. I think it's not like this barrage all the way through. It's done so it's very poignant and has a purpose and a place within the
Mm.
song, and that's what I really like. And I think that's probably what jumped out to me more than anything else. Because as much as I've got respect for, the big heavy hitters like Dave Lombardo and Nick Menza and all those guys that are well, Nick's no longer with us, but
Yeah,
those
yeah.
guys, were really
He's a
full
great
on.
drummer as well, Nick.
Just and there's just not this. It's just not a consistent wall of just double bass drum, because
Yeah,
I
yeah,
think sometimes it just loses other it. Because when you hear it to start off with, it's like, oh, that's really really cool, and don't get it's really
yeah,
hard to
yeah.
play. Like it's so hard to play like that. I know it is. I'd love to play like that. I can't. But if it's there all the time, then it kind of gets lost. I remember when I saw
Yeah.
Machine Head for the first time, and I thought I was really digging it, and then it just kind of got lost on me. Whereas
Yeah,
if it's used purposefully, then it gives it a place within something, and it makes it fit within what it needs to fit in.
well,
Um,
that's the thing. I mean, you've got these guys that can do that, that real fast,
mm,
that kind of bass, and it's fantastic. I mean, there's certain songs when it works and it sounds fantastic.
mm,
I mean, I do enjoy that kind of drumming. I do love hearing that kind of stuff. But I mean, I've never really. I always prefer to use the second bass drum. It's more like, frequency wise, more like a tom.
yeah.
Try and incorporate it into fills and try to sort of use it in that way instead of just going,
Mm,
putting that kind of fast stuff in. Because I just think if you're going 100 mile an hour, where do you go from there? You've kind of
mm,
peaked out. So,
yeah.
and I think for me, I've always been very song orientated. For me, the song is the most important thing,
Mm,
and I think it's as a drummer, it's important that we look at the songs and you listen to, if you listen to everybody else in the band, listen to what the bass is doing, listen to what the vocals are doing, you can hear little rhythmical passages that sort of different parts of the band are doing, and it's if
absolutely.
you can just latch onto that and try to something that'll sit nicely
Mm,
with that, or that'll help highlight that. It's just peaks and troughs. You've got to know
mm,
when to pull it back, when to push it, and it's just being
yeah.
very sort of sensitive to what's going on around you. Don't just sort of, I'm just going to go and just see what happens. You've all got to follow me. I prefer to listen to what's going on and just try to sort of
Mm.
pick out little bits that I can, oh, well, I can do this that will fit nicely with that. And, you know,
It's accenting spaces. That's what I
definitely,
that
yeah.
and that's what I think you did really well on Draconian Times. I've got to be honest. I
Well,
think
cheers.
there's,
Thank you.
and I mean that because I think there's little bits, and I suppose because I've been listening to it more in depth from a drumming point of view rather than just listening to the whole thing
Yeah.
recently. Partly knowing because I was going to be talking to you, but also um, just really locking in and hearing the things. And there's another one of the songs, um, and your ride cymbal just cuts through like it's just a magic sound. Just it's like heaven. It's just so
Oh,
nice. Um,
I think a lot
uh,
of that is down to production. I mean, Simon did a great job on production, and obviously I had Pee Wee Common who was engineering it as
mm,
well. And I think, if you get the right people in the studio, I mean, they can make anybody sound good. You just get good people around you, and it all works together. And I mean, so they have to take a lot of credit for things like that because it's them that bring the sound.
yeah, and it just
I'll just sit there and build a shed in the back and just say, "Can you make me sound good?"
it just sounded balanced. I think that's probably what it is. It just
Yeah,
everything, like you said, planets aligning, and I think that's exactly what it was. It was like when the first time I heard "Rust in Peace" when that came out.
yeah, yeah.
Um, that was just like wow, because obviously,
Mm.
Megadeth had a new lineup at that point with Marty and with Nick, and it's just
Yeah, yeah,
it was just a different dynamic in that band. It just
yeah,
changed the sound. Everything was just like wow,
yeah, yeah.
and yeah, just brilliant, just brilliant. I
Great.
feel I was saying this to Jeff actually. I feel blessed that I was able to be a part of seeing that. When they were on tour and stuff, just
Oh
loved it.
gosh, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
I never saw Megadeth live. Well, we did some shows in South America. I think 95, 96, the Monsters of Rock tour with Ozzy, and they were on the bill. But I never ever got to see Megadeth. I would love to have seen Nick. I thought Nick was a great drummer. I think
just amazing. Yeah,
fantastic.
just brilliant. It's sad what happened,
Of
but yeah,
course, yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, they're
Too
fantastic.
many great
Absolutely.
drummers go too soon. I mean, I was a big Eric Carr fan as well, and when he went, I
Yeah,
was absolutely distraught. It's just.
yeah, gutted with Eric. I mean, I'm a massive Kiss fan, and I
Mm.
have been for years. I remember the first time I saw Kiss was '92 on the Revenge tour.
Wow,
Um,
yeah. Eric Singer
So
in there.
Eric Singer had only just joined them and they did like 5 or 6 dates over in the UK, and they played in Plymouth, and
Mm.
they brought this they still had the Sphinx that they used on the Hot in the Shade tour. You
Yeah,
remember
yeah.
this? Yeah, yeah. So they had that on the stage, and I can remember it like it was yesterday, and the Sphinx has filled up pretty much the whole of the stage because the Pavilions is not a big venue at all, and Eric Singer's kit came up between the feet. So these lasers came out of the eyes, like
It
lit
was a
up.
great light show on that tour, wasn't it?
Oh my god! And as his kit came up, the other three came down on these platforms. So you had Gene, Paul, and Bruce coming down on these things, and
Yeah,
they just launched into Detroit Rock City. And it's like, it was just like the amazing to hear that
yeah, yeah.
just brilliant. It was just brilliant. It was just
Well, I was
so
lucky
good.
because my dad took me to see them on the Lick It Up tour. I played at
Really?
Stafford Community
Ah,
Hall, so I
cool.
saw
How
them
cool is
with the
that?
tank and everything. So I saw them on that tour. Then I saw them on the Crazy Nights tour, and then obviously saw them on Revenge. But then I went to London to watch them on the Reunion tour as well. So yeah, I was a
Did
big. I
you?
mean,
Was
they were the
that?
first two albums. Iron Maiden Killers and Kiss Alive One were the first two rock albums I ever heard, and that's what got me into rock music.
Amazing. And again, brilliant albums. Just
Yeah,
brilliant
yeah.
albums. Just absolutely brilliant. So you go? Did you go to the? So that was the car. Did you go to the Kiss when they brought back Pete, Chris, and Ace Frehley when they went back into makeup?
Yeah, yeah. The
At
first tour, which was the farewell tour, I think it was 2000. It's been the
yeah.
longest farewell tour, I think, in the history of farewells, I think. Yeah. Their
Yeah.
farewell tours lasted longer than my musical career. So that's,
Still
you know,
going.
I know, yeah. Well, we did a gig. We did the Sweden Rock, and Kiss were playing the night after us.
Yeah.
So we had to leave because we were flying out to Germany to do a show. So I never got to see them, but I got to meet Lorne Wheaton, who's Eric's drum tech, because he was Neil
Amazing.
Peart's drum tech for many years. And he gave me a used pair of Eric Singer's drumsticks. And, the crew were great. They gave us loads of plectrums and stuff. And I was just gutted. I got to sort of have a look at Eric's kit and stuff. And it was great. I never got to see them, but I actually got to sort of walk around the stage and see all the Paul's guitars and everything. So that was
Amazing.
a good fanboy moment.
It's good to have a fanboy moment, actually.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's brilliant. Yeah, I know. I've seen Kiss probably more than I've seen anyone else actually. But amazing, amazing. And I'm getting to see them again next year at Donington, so I can't wait
Well, I
for
had
that.
tickets for the Manchester show that got cancelled. After
Mm.
after what happened with Ariana Grande, my wife
Yeah.
bought me surprise tickets for that, and she like kept it secret. And she just gave me an envelope with like a kiss on it with lipstick.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, what's this? And I opened it, but she got us tickets for the Kiss show, and obviously the show never happened. So I was like, oh my
No.
goodness.
Gutted. Yeah, I went. I saw them on that tour. I saw them in Birmingham. I saw them at the indoor arena. Just they were great.
Yeah, yeah.
They were just great.
Always a fun show.
Just amazing. Love it. Yeah, just it's just all just. What more can you say? They are the Kiss are just Kiss, aren't they?
Yeah.
They're
I mean,
legendary.
I
They're
think
legendary.
when I watch a lot of the recent stuff, you can tell that Paul's starting to struggle now with his voice. And I think there's a bit of lip syncing going on. But at the end of the day, it's he's been doing it at that level for so long. It's still the original guy, so you're going to cut him some slack, really. There's Kiss fans, he could go and burp all the way through a set and we'd still go and watch him, you know what I mean? Of course, Stanley, just do whatever, it doesn't matter.
I think with them as a band, and last time I saw them, again, I was in Birmingham, I saw them, but they played, I noticed, so Gene sung more, and Tommy Taylor sung more,
Yeah.
and actually Eric Singer sang as well, which I thought was really.
Yeah.
So they're giving Paul a bit of a break, and I think that's fair enough. They can't go on forever. They can't. I know they're an establishment, but they're just amazing, just amazing. Anyway, we
in
kind
the
of
70s. I mean, I struggle walking around in their boots at 51. So to do that in your 70s, I'd be like, flipping heck.
It's
Nah.
mad. It's mad, isn't it? It's mad. It's so cool though. It's so cool that they're still doing it. So
I mean, that's a rock show. I mean, that's a visual. It's just you'll never ever see a show like that. For the flash bombs and the lights and the effects. I mean, it's the larger than life, isn't it? And they've always been that way. So
it is that bombastic side of it, which I think is so exciting.
Yeah.
It's just awesome. Yeah, it's just brilliant. It is just brilliant. So from Draconian Times.
Yep.
Then it moved on, and then obviously the next album came out, which was equally good in my opinion. And that had a more of a commercial sound again, didn't it?
Yeah.
And how was that in a band point of view, Lee, with the dynamic? Was that a conscious thing?
Well, I think when you look at the history of Paradise Lost, and you look obviously what happened with Icon, and I think Draconian Time was just like a continuation, more polished version of Icon, really. But then I think after that, I just think Nick and Greg just wanted to do something different. I think they've kind of been touring sort of quite consistently for the last 4 years as well, playing that kind of music. I just think they wanted to try something just a little bit different. And I think Greg had got into the use of keyboards and electronic kind of stuff, because I mean he's a massive Depeche Mode fan, so I think he was always kind of had one foot in that kind of thing anyway. I think he was just trying something different. It would have been easy just to have carried on doing the same kind of thing, and part of me wish that we had have at least continued that a bit longer, maybe done another album or two in that band and then sort of really established ourselves. Because I think once you get to a certain point, like Metallica did, you can do anything, and the fans will just buy it. But I think, we maybe changed, from my personal opinion, I think we changed a bit too soon. Maybe another album like that just to sort of give us that next sort of nudge up, But I think the band, they just wanted to sort of go in a slightly different direction. But it's still a strong album, just a slightly different, more sort of, probably more commercially accessible, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, Say Just Words, which, I remember the first time I heard that, I was just like, wow, I've got it. I bought the album when it came out, just because I wanted it anyway. But that's such a strong song. And Nick's voice is just blew me away when I heard that. It's like, oh, I've got to play that loud. Got to play it loud.
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, Nick can do the growling stuff, but he can sing as well. And I think it was good for him because he got the chance to sort of explore that side of his voice.
Yeah.
Makes him in that sort of hard, sort of Hetfield sort of growl for such a long time. I think just to have that little bit of sort of, these songs are slightly different there, so I can actually sort of sing more. I think it was, it was probably good for him as well.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it was awesome. So we went to it was when my wife, she was my girlfriend at the time, we went to see TerrorVision play at Imbued, and while the bands were coming on before, actually Say Just Words came on the house PA through the thing, and it just sounded so good outside on that because they had it really cranked up as well. And my mate Baz, who was with me as well, and he was like, what's this? And I said, oh mate, this is the new Paradise Lost. You've so got to listen to this. And he's like, oh, it's so good. And he was really into Rage Against the Machine and stuff like that. So he,
Yeah,
yeah, he was really digging it, and it's just great. Just yeah, we often have conversations about that now, and just say, just
yeah.
weird how certain things happen, and then you hear something, and it's how it evokes a memory for whatever reason. And I think music's so powerful like that.
Music does that, you know. You can listen to any song on the radio, and it'll take you right back.
Mm.
You know, I mean, I think music is the best thing for that. You know, listen to Bon Jovi, a Slippery song, and you think, oh gosh, I'm back in Edwards number 8, 17 years old. You know, sort of, you know, trying very unsuccessfully to pull girls. You know what I mean? But
Absolutely, absolutely. But that's right. You're right. You're so right. You're so right. So kind of after Paradise, because obviously you were in Paradise Lost for about 10 years.
yeah.
How did that move up? What was the reason for your exit, if you like? If you're happy for me to ask you that, obviously.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. I mean, there'd been I think, a gradual build up. I mean, when we did the Host record, you know, I was at that point really, really unhappy in the band, you know, and so, you know, I made my feelings known that, you know, this is not where I want to be going, you know, musically with the band, you know, because I just didn't think it was, you know, a fair reflection of what we were about. You know, I think it was more of a self-indulgence and, you know, trying to do an album like that. So I actually had a meeting with the manager at the end of that tour, and I was actually ready to leave because I thought, you know, I'm not a fan of Depeche Mode. I don't want to be in a Depeche Mode tribute band. You know, this band started this whole genre, and I just thought we just lost our way completely. But, you know, I had a talk with the manager, and, you know, he convinced me to stay. So we did an album after that called Believe in Nothing. That wasn't a particularly pleasing sort of album to be part of as well, because the way we recorded the drums was just ridiculous. You know, John Fry, the producer, he wanted to just record the bass drum and snare drum separately. So I'd sit there and just record the bass drum and snare drum. And then he'd wanted me to record the hi-hats and all the cymbals and the fills. And I was like, well, how can I do a drum fill when the way I play, I incorporate my snares and my bass drum with fills. So I ended up having to simplify everything down. So that wasn't, you know, a good experience. So again, I was like, oh, this is just getting worse and worse and worse. And I was just started getting really, really frustrated and exasperated with the whole thing. And then we did the last album, Symbol of Life, which I really enjoyed, you know. But by that point, I think my love affair with the Paradise Lost would kind of started to wane, and I wasn't happy being there, and I think the band knew that, and they weren't happy with being there. And, you know, I was just at the end of that sort of tour. I heard the demos for the new record, and for the first time ever, just wasn't inspired at all. Didn't hear anything drum wise, and I was just like, I'm kind of done with this. And I think it was about a week afterwards, I had a phone call from Aaron, and I said, you know, they decided to let me go. So it was fine. You know, I kind of knew it was coming. You know, it was pretty obvious on that last tour. You know, because I was kind of, you know, spending more and more time on my own on the last tour, you know, so I wasn't going out eating with the band, and, you know, I didn't want to be around the band. You know, I was hanging out with the guys from Within Temptation. You know, I've got on really good friends with them, and I was hanging out on their tour most of the time. And I just think the relationship just fractured musically and personality wise, you know, and I think it just wasn't a healthy environment for us all to be in. So it was the right thing to do at the time, the right thing for me and the right thing for the band.
Oh, it's fair enough. No, it's just interesting knowing how those sort of things kind of,
Yeah.
how it just kind of naturally falls, you know, more than anything else, you know.
Yeah.
So what kind of so after that, what was the next chapter for you after that? So you obviously.
Well, I think,
you know,
after that, I kind of took a bit of a break from music because I think I got so disillusioned with the whole thing. You know, I just took a break, and so I just ended up just doing a regular job for a while. You know, and then that was tough. That was really tough because, like I said, just to go from being a musician to, you know, doing a normal job, I found really difficult. And eventually I started getting back into, like, just playing in tribute bands because, you know, I need to play, you know. So I started doing some tribute stuff. I got a few sessions. Then I ended up working with a guy called Danny Vaughan, who was the singer with Ty Ketto. So I ended up,
Ketto.
yeah. Well, I did 2 albums with Danny. We did an album called Traveller, and then like an acoustic live album called The Road Less Traveled. So I did 2 albums with him. I did an album with a band called Creation's Tears. It was very much in the vein of, you know, sort of goth rock kind of stuff. And I just got the odd session here and there and did some tribute stuff. So I was kind of playing and teaching and, you know, doing different bits and pieces. Nothing really sort of too extreme, really. And then I just got offered the Magnum job. I'd finished with a Thin Lizzy tribute band, and I was there doing a drum lesson, and I got a phone call from Tony Clarkin, you know, just saying that he'd heard my stuff on YouTube and I'd been recommended by, you know, I mean, the thing with Magnum, I've always had a connection with Magnum because I know Al, the bass player, really well because I was in a band with his sister.
Okay.
I knew Mark Stewart, who was their tour manager, sound engineer, because he did some work with Martial Law in the early days. And I also knew Annie, who was Bob's personal manager, because she tried to get me working with Bob on his solo stuff. So I kind of knew a lot of people within there.
Mm.
It was just one of those. I think it was Harry was really busy with Thunder, and I wanted to do more shows, and Magnum wanted to do more shows. And it was always a conflict trying to sort of get tours together. And Tony just said, if you want the job, it's yours. I didn't have to audition. I was like, oh my goodness, that's the first time that's ever happened. You know, without actually even playing with them. I thought, oh my goodness, yeah, and that's it. So I've been there ever since.
It's awesome because I mean, again, we talk about established bands. When you take the British rock as it is, Magnum are right in the foundations of all of that.
Oh gosh,
you know?
yeah. I mean, next year's the band's 50th anniversary.
I'm not surprised.
Oh, wow,
It's
50
just
years.
it's amazing. And I saw Magnum back in, I think it must have been 2017. They played in Bristol. I saw them, and Vega was supporting them actually.
Yeah.
And I was just blown away, and hearing some of those songs I hadn't heard for ages. Like Days of No Trust, which is such a great. I love that song. And Storyteller's Night, hearing that, and they're just fantastic songs. Fantastic songs.
Yeah.
So that kind of brings me on to my next question, because obviously, if you were a fan of them, is there a particular song in the set list that you always look forward to playing because it's like a bit of a fanboy moment with them?
Well, the thing was, what got me into Magnum was the song "Just Like an Arrow" of Storyteller's Night.
What a great song!
I managed to convince, when I first joined the band, I managed to convince Tony to play. I think we did it at 2 shows. And then he hates the songs. He never kind of saw the light of day after that. But he indulged me for a couple of shows and let us play that song. But that was the first song that I heard. And at the time, I used to work in telesales for FM Revolver Records. And obviously, I used to sell that record into the shops. It's weird how it's gone full circle. I used to ring up shops and go, "Oh, this is Lee from FM Revolver, and we've got this Magnum album," So I used to sell it into shops. And then lo and behold, a few years later, I'm actually playing these songs with them. So it's a very, very weird thing. But yeah, I mean, I was a big fan of Magnum. I saw them at Birmingham Odeon on the Vigilante tour. I thought Mickey Barker was a fantastic drummer, you know what I mean? So it's, I've been a big fan of the band. So it's kind of cool to go from being a fan. I mean, you still sit there sometimes. I'm sat at the back looking, I'm thinking, well, there's Tony and there's Bob. And I'm thinking, gosh, I'm the wrong side of the stage here. I should be there.
I should be the other, looking at all this. Yeah. First time I saw them was on... when they did Heartbroken Busted. So it was on that album when that came out, and just brilliant. Yeah, I remember, and they're just ace. And again, I saw they played at Cornwall Coliseum. So, and like I said, hardly any other bands came down. I think I'd seen like Saxon down there a couple of weeks beforehand, and then Magnum were playing. It's like, so we went and saw them, and I was just blown away. Just loved every minute of it. It's just fantastic,
Well, I mean, that's the thing. I mean, Tony, just even now, I mean, he's still got that enthusiasm for writing songs. He still writes great songs, you know what I mean? Well, he's 75 now, Tony, and he hasn't lost any of his desire. I mean, he just loves writing and loves being out there playing. So it's amazing. Like 50 years. I mean, that's you never know with this industry how long it's going to last. So I mean, for any band that can, sort of be doing it for 50 years, that's just incredible.
Yeah, and still be successful at doing it, and still got people who want to go and see shows and buy albums. Just brilliant.
I mean, the Magnum fans are just incredible. I mean, there's a lot of people there. But it's the same with the crew. We had the same crew for like years and years and years. It's like a family. And the fans are just fantastic. I've followed the band for years and years and years. And it's, we hang out with the fans all the time. And so, we'll sort of come out and have a beer with them after the show. And they're just like friends. They've become really good friends because they come to so many shows. Some people, they'll come to like 30, 40 shows over the course of a tour. And, it's amazing. It really is.
Wow. So that kind of leads me brilliantly into the next thing. What have you had any experiences playing live, like with bigger shows or whatever, where something hasn't gone how you've wanted it to go, and it's been like, how are we gonna get through this?
Yes, there's a couple of moments like that. I remember we were doing a German show. I don't know if it was Bizarre Festival or Rock am Ring, but we were doing a German show, and it was going out live on TV. It being broadcast live, and we had like a lot of songs. We had like a click track going with like different things going on. And I remember sort of the intro was playing, and I was listening. I was thinking, the clicks normally come in by now. There's a bit of a lead up before the song kicks in. And I looked down and we had like an ADAT machine that we used to have, and we had like an 8 channel, and like channel 8 was always the click, and I could see the level going up on this ADAT machine. And I'm looking down, I couldn't hear, so I was checking my headphones and everything. I was trying to let me drum set. No, there's no click. So, but the song was about to start, so I had to look at the click on the 8-track. And I was basically playing to the light until, so I was trying to talk to my drum tech at the time, trying to watch the light to try and sort of stay in with it. And then eventually, like, it all started going. But I was thinking, we had the first 3 songs were all linked together. So if you'd have dropped a beat, you'd have had 3 songs completely one beat out.
Man.
And so, but luckily, they managed to sort it. But I was just watching this light, just trying to look at it. So after that, what we did was, my drum tech came up with this idea that we had 2 lights at the front of the kit. I think it was a red one and a green one that would always sort of go in time with the clicks if ever there was anything went wrong with the thing. And I think I worked it out that these colours could still be seen with all the stage lighting changing. Yeah. So we had this thing. So I had like a bit of VisiClick going on as well, just in case that went wrong. So that happened, and that was the one time I was thinking this had to be a live on TV show, didn't it? It had to be. Luckily, managed to get it going, and like we didn't manage to. I mean, the band didn't even know what was going on. There was me just at the back of the stage trying to communicate with them. Oh my God, why has it always happened to me? So yeah, that was quite a scary moment.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah. It's not when stuff goes wrong. As much as it's funny from a Spinal Tap point of view, actually it's not funny because it's actually it's really quite stressful in the moment. Because it's like
we had the Spinal Tap moment in Japan. We did the first ever Japan tour. And the back of the stage was like a really narrow sort of thing like that to get behind, to get to the riser. And all the power cables were running behind this drum riser. And the intro tape was going, the crowd was sort of cheering and everything. I walked behind the back of this drum riser, tread on the power cable. There's a big flash of blue light, and all the on-stage sort of power went off. And so we just had the intro going. Now, luckily, I had these rubber-soled boots on, and the guy said, "It's a good job you had that. You'd been electrocuted because there's a big flash of blue light, and all the power went off." So obviously, the crew had to come on, the local crew kind of sorted out the stage and everything. Then we had to run the intro again. And I think, what an anticlimax this is.
Oh, man. Wow.
Honestly. You can see why these films Spinal Tap happen, because these things really do happen. It's not a myth, these strange things do really happen.
Oh, brilliant. So from kind of mishaps and stuff, what have been highlights for you that always go, in your memory, things that probably could never be kind of topped, if you like,
Yeah.
Have you got a couple of those?
Yeah, I mean, I think my first ever proper show with Paradise Lost will always stand out, because we did 4 sort of. We went out as the Painless and did 4 sort of small club shows before the tour started. And my first ever show was headlining the Dynamo Festival in Holland, and there was 120,000 people there. And that was my first ever Paradise Lost show. So I'd gone from playing these little clubs, and I thought, this is okay. I'm used to playing these kind of venues. So playing that as my first ever show. So that stands out, because that was like a real baptism by fire. And I think the other one that will always stand out is playing the last ever Donington. This is before it was down. The last ever Monster at Donington in '96. I mean, just as an English lad to play Donington, look out and see the tyre. That's just like, oh my goodness, is this really happening? So
it's every British drummer's dream, I think. To play at Donington and go, just to have that experience. Yeah, it's never happened to me. Maybe one day. I don't know. I don't expect so.
I'm getting older now, though, so my memory's not like it used to be. So I'm forgetting. So it's all good having these memories if you can remember it, isn't it?
Well, yeah, absolutely. So have you? I'm going to talk to you a little bit about your kit now. What are your preferences with your kit? Is there a certain kind of standard setup that you like to use all of the time, or do you vary that up a little bit, or how's that usually work for you?
Yeah, I mean, I have a preferred setup. I mean, I've always gone with like 2 bass drums, 14-inch snare. And I've always gone 10, 12, 13 rack toms, 16 floor tom. There's been times when I've lost the 13 and just gone on two on the top and 2 on the bottom. I've had to on occasion, but it's pretty much 10, 12, 13, 16. That's where I've always gone. But I've always sort of had 2 bass drums, but I use a double pedal. I just like the look of 2 bass drums, because I have 2 Chinas, two bass drums, and I just like that real 80s
Yeah.
look. I just think I'm a bit OCD really, so everything's got to be symmetrical and everything's got to be the same. My drum set would probably hate me, but I'm just everything's got to be symmetrical. It's all got to be right. But the left bass drum is completely so there's no skin on it even. I just have
Oh
it because I
wow.
want to
Okay.
do the playheads, So. But I've always used a double pedal because I like to double mic the bass drum. We put two mics in there. So if I was going to double mic two bass drums, that's taking up 4 channels on the desk, and that's just
Yeah. No, that's
that's
fair
just
enough.
crazy.
That's fair enough. That's fair enough. Yeah, it's just interesting, kind of, because I know exactly what you're saying. It's the presence that it has, isn't it?
Oh
It's
yeah.
something about that, the way it looks.
Mm.
I remember seeing Tommy Lee's drum kit, and always
Yeah,
thinking
yeah,
that looks cool. And like Ricky Rocket from Poison, I always loved how his kit looked. You
yeah,
know,
yeah.
um, and then I think that was probably one of the things about like with Maiden I could never understand. Like so, Nico plays everything with one foot,
Yeah, yeah.
and it's just nuts how he manages that. All those little, just incredible. But he gets some of those licks out that some drummers need two bass drums to get out,
Yeah,
and he's
yeah.
not. He's all on one foot. So it
Well,
always.
I bought a Ludwig Speed King bass drum pedal back in the day because apparently
Mm.
that's what Nico used to use. But I couldn't play like Nico. I thought I'd been condy. I'm going to take it back to the shop, get my money back.
Yeah, why is it not working?
The spring must be dodgy on this one. Can I have my money back?
Oh no, I'll replace the spring. Can I have a new one? Yeah. But that's it though, isn't it? It just is mesmerizing when you start looking and picking out different styles in different drummers of what and how they are. I mean, my at the moment, I mean, I like 2 up, 2 down on my kit, which I got behind me. And the reason I got it set up like that is so when lockdown happened, when it all kicked off back in the March of 20, so I couldn't do face-to-face lessons anymore. So the student kit I packed up, stuck it in the corner, and I got all of my kit out and set it up in the middle of the room. And that was it. It was like, well, I want to play my kit full all the time now because I've got everything out, and I don't want to put anything away because beforehand I just didn't want to. So I've had to rearrange the studio to fit my kit in with everything set up, and I've now got a smaller student kit with a smaller bass drum.
Those toy ones are like a bass drum that big.
Yeah. It's actually a tom just turned on its end. No,
That's what it is.
it's actually got an 18-inch bass drum just because it just takes up a little bit less room, but it works and it's perfect for what they need. But yeah, I just got so used to having everything out that it would feel wrong to take something away now. And that's it's a funny thing, isn't it? That's why I was asking you.
Yeah, once you get used to setup, that's it. You kind of know where everything is, so you can kind of almost play without looking. It's just having that sort of familiarity with your kit and knowing where everything is there, and just sort of just keep looking at everything.
Yeah. Have you got preferences with your cymbal makes and stuff like that? Is there a?
Yeah, I mean, I've been very, very fortunate. I mean, I've got some great endorsements that I'm working with now. With the kit, I work with a Scottish company called Dualist. A good friend of mine, Kevin Mackey, who I've known for a long time. We've become really, really good friends, and we wanted to do something special with the Magnum kit. So I mean, the kits themselves were fantastic, and the bass drum pedals and the hardware are all amazing. But we wanted to do something different, and I was very much into Magnum is very much a very sort of arty band, the album covers are all very sort of striking, and I wanted to incorporate that in the kit. So we kind of had this idea to actually incorporate all the album artwork actually into the shells on the kit.
No, I did wonder that. I did wonder.
Yeah, and Kevin was so on board with it. I said, look, I just don't want it to be like a normal kit. I want to incorporate certain elements of the band's artwork. So we got these wraps on the kit, put it all on, and it just looked amazing. And we had a black rack which was displayed black, so all the hardware is black, all the cymbal stands, everything's black, all the hardware, all the rims, everything's all black, and then you've got this artwork and it just looks
I've got black hardware for my kit as well because I just think it looks the nuts.
Honestly, anything that when I was talking to Kev, I mean, I love the fact he just gets so excited by things. We're talking about it, and he just gets really excited about it, and we share this idea to want to do something really special. So I mean, to have a company like that to work with, it's just amazing. He's fully on board with stuff, and we bounce ideas backwards and forwards, and we talk about stuff.
Awesome.
You know, so I mean, that for me is great. I've just recently changed cymbals as well. Carl, the drummer from Diamond Head, he's a rep for Murat Drill Cymbals, a Turkish cymbal company.
Yeah.
And I've just recently moved to them. And
Awesome.
they are just absolutely incredible cymbals. They're the best cymbals. I mean, I've had Zildjian, I've had Paste, I've had Sabin, but as soon as I played these, I was blown away. And I got Pete Newdeck a deal with them as well, because he was asking me about cymbals.
Yeah, I noticed that because he was a Sabian boy for a long time, and I noticed he's just changed over.
Yeah. Because he
But he's
gave me a
actually
call. I'm thinking of changing cymbals. Who do you recommend? I said, listen, try these. So I set him up with Carl, and then he's moved over to Murat Drill now. But honestly, they're just incredible. They're so cutting. But I mean, I'm using the biggest cymbals. I've used like 19s and 20-inch crashes now.
Wow. Okay.
They've got that massive sort of explosion. But they kind of die off. You know, I hate these cymbals that ring forever. So you kind of get they're just amazing.
Awesome.
I've got that, and I've got a stick deal with Ice Sticks in Germany, who I've used for many years. They're based in Berlin, and I'm just really happy with the three companies that I use.
That's it. We've talked about lots of stuff, but one thing we haven't covered, and we ought to probably is influences from drummers as you've gone through your career. You know, and if there are any, because there might not be. I know that you know. I'm sure there probably are. And has there been any fanboy moments where you've met someone you've kind of not necessarily idolized, but always thought, I'd love to meet you one day? Have you had any of those moments as well?
Well, they always say, don't they? It's meeting your heroes can go one of two ways.
Yeah.
You know, you either sort of like the band even more, or you think, what a dick, you know? You just never know what's going to happen. Well, I've been pretty fortunate. Back in the day, you know, we used to get invited to the Kerrang Awards and things, and you know, you got to meet a lot of sort of, you know, people like Lemmy and the guys from Bon Jovi and the guys from Iron Maiden. So I'm very, very fortunate, you know, that I got to meet a lot of, you know, people in band, and they were always great. You know, I never really met any that sort of came out and I thought, oh, what a dick, you know. I never ever had any mates like that. Luckily for me, you know, I became quite good friends with some people, you know. So I've become good friends with Dennis Stratton, the original Iron Maiden guitarist. You know, he was, you know, we would play together actually. I did some shows with a Dutch band called Maiden United that had Rude from Within Temptation involved, and cool. Damien Wilson, and we played together and played some Iron Maiden songs. And he sent me, he knows that I collect like memorabilia, because my dining room, I've got all these signed albums of all the bands that I was into as a kid. You know, it's like my sort of homage to all these bands. And Dennis sent me a 1979 promo photo that's fully signed by the band. So he had like Clive Burr on there, Paul Diano. And he sent me this little note saying, oh, you know, there's not many of these left in the world, mate. So if you decide to sell it, you know, give the money to charity. And I was like, flipping heck. So that was like a proper fanboy moment, you know, to get that off Denny. So that was really cool. He's a lovely guy, though. He's been out to a couple of Magnum shows. He's a really, really nice guy. And it's always good to get some of the old Iron Maiden stories from back in the day, you know, back right from the beginning. So
yeah, that's cool to hear that. That's really cool to hear that. Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah, no, it's because obviously when I spoke to Pete Newdeck back in the summer, you know, and obviously he played with Paul Diano with Killers and everything, and it's just great hearing him talking about some of those road stories and things like that. It's just it's just amazing. Just love it. You know, can't get enough of that sort of thing really, because it's just awesome. It's just so good hearing it. It's just so good.
Oh God, yeah.
It's just so good hearing it.
Influence wise, I mean, oh gosh. I mean, I was a massive Jeff Porcaro fan. I mean, there wasn't, you know, the amount of albums that he's played. I was a massive into Jeff Porcaro. I was really into Dean Castronovo, who I did actually meet. He was playing with Ozzy Osbourne at the time. And we did a South American tour with Ozzy. And I met Dean, and he was just the sweetest guy ever. He was like, if you need any sticks or any heads or whatever, you know, he was great. You know, really, really got on well with him. So he was a really cool guy. Gosh, I'm trying to think who else I've met who's been a hero. Trying to think. I mean, seriously, one of you know, I know this guy's been mentioned on your show before, because I did actually have a little bit of a look of the interviews that you did. You know, because I just thought I want to see what I'm letting myself in for here.
Yeah, too, right? Absolutely.
You know, I thought, where's his trapdoor? Let me just have a look for it. So,
yeah.
one of the guys that got mentioned was Pete Jupp from FM.
Yeah,
Yeah, I was a
absolutely.
massive Pete Jupp fan. You
Mm,
know, he was the first drummer that I ever saw because I went to see Bon Jovi on the Slippery and Wet Tour of Birmingham Odeon. Now, you know, I'd never seen a visual drummer because, I'd never seen anyone like Tommy Lee. You know, I'd always just like seen drummers that play.
yeah.
And he was there. I think he had a white Premier Resonator kit, right? And he stood on his bass drums and he was throwing his sticks right in the air. And I'd never seen that before. And I got a bit of a sort of, not an erotic obsession with Pete Jupp, but from a drumming point of view. And I actually sort of, here's the funny thing, I spoke to Premier Drums and I said, I want that same Premier Resonator kit that Pete Jupp's got. And I said, well, you can't have that because he's got all his toms are a different size. He's got like I think his 8-inch tom was by 10, his 10-inch tom was by 10, and he had all these big sizes. And I absolutely hounded Premier for about 6 months. You know, I said, I want that kit, I want that kit. And in the end, I said, you are just not going to leave us alone, are you? I said, no. I said, okay. And they agreed to make me the exact replica kit that Pete had on that tour. And like I said, and he was a massive influence on me, because I mean, he's playing and, the visual side of things.
He's
And,
just amazing. He's an amazing drummer.
he is. And he's a
I mean,
nice guy as well. I mean, I got to meet him on that.
did you? Oh, I'd love to meet Pete. I really would.
Yeah. Yeah, I met him
Yeah.
on that sort, him and Mervyn, because I kind of, I got to sort of go in the afternoon and had a chat with him. I got a picture of downstairs, sat behind his kit and stuff, and a picture with him and Merv. And he was really gracious, And I met him recently again because we Magnum and FM played together in Minehead.
Oh, cool.
And he's got such a dry sense of humour. And I said, I've been a massive fan of yours for years. And he was just like, I think he said something like, oh, why do you want to do that? He's just so unassuming. But now he's a great player. And he still is now. I mean, he's got his small kit now, but I mean, he still plays great. And FM, just one of my favourite bands as well.
They're such a great British band.
Oh God, yeah.
I mean, the first time I saw them, actually, I said this when I was talking to Pete. I saw them supporting Whitesnake, and I mean, no offense to David Coverdale and the guys that were playing with him, but FM blew him off stage without a doubt.
Oh gosh, yeah.
And Steve Overland's voice, oh my God, it was just like. Wow, and it was because it was on the Aphrodisiac tour, and Andy had started playing with them as well. So the guitar sound was so different, It was all, just my God, they were just brilliant. I loved it.
I mean, Steve's voice always has been. I mean, I saw them with Bon Jovi. I saw loads of small club shows after that. But I went to see him quite a few times. And his voices, I mean, even now, his voice is amazing. I mean, I took my wife to see him because, I mean, my wife had never seen FM, and so I took her to see him in Nantwich. And she was just like, she was open mouth. She goes, I can't believe his voice. It just sounds like chocolate. He's just so smooth and so good. I said, it was just amazing, And he always has been. I've never ever heard him have a bad night. He's like a machine.
It's just amazing. And again, I remember buying No Electricity Required when that came out.
Yeah.
And just the whole thought behind that, the fact they chucked all their gear in the back of a Cortina and they drove around and did like amazing and just fantastic, just fantastic. I love everything about them as a band. I think are amazing. And then when they got their second coming and were able to come back with their newest, it's brilliant. It's
I saw that show when they came back and did Firefest. I actually saw that. Yeah, I was actually at that show, and it was Kieran who ran Firefest that got them back together. So I saw them when they got back together. I saw them at Winstanley College as well. I did like a bit of a secret show at Winstanley College. But yeah, I mean, when they came back the second time, I mean, I think they were just so surprised by the reaction, kind of. And then now they're probably bigger than they've ever been. So it's
just brilliant. Yeah, they're a band I've got to see them again at some point.
Oh, you've got to. Yeah.
I have to. Yeah, I'm desperately trying to get an interview with Pete because I know he doesn't.
Let me message him and I'll see if I can sort something out.
That would be so cool. It would be so cool.
Because I'll tell him to watch all these podcasts, and you obviously had Pete Newdeck, Jeff, and me all talking about him. So he's going to feel compelled to have to do it now. So it'd
be so good. It would be so
all these fanboys.
It'd be so good to talk to him. It would be amazing. And he also because he's got an endorsement with the British Drum Company like Jeff.
Yeah.
So it'd be really cool to talk to someone else because they're people speak very highly of their product as well. So
oh gosh, yeah.
And they seem to be making quite a big name for themselves in as an industry from that sort of side of things. It's just really good to hear that coming through, and it's great. It's really good.
I think it's great for a British drum company to be coming through. You know what I mean? Because a lot of stuff gets made in Japan and everything else. And I think just to actually have a British company, I mean, like Premier back in the day,
Yeah.
But I think that kit that Pete's got now, I think it was made. I'm sure it was a prototype. It was a guy that I'm sure the guy was at Premier, and then he kind of went off, to British Drum Company. But I think it was like a bit of a hybrid or something like a prototype kit, the one that Pete's got. But it sounds fantastic.
Yeah, and of course now Nico is is a British Drum Company drummer as well. So
Yeah.
which is just mind blowing. Yeah.
I
Maybe
mean, he
one
was
day.
signed for years. I mean, gosh, you can't see Nico behind a kit other than the sound. It just doesn't look right.
No, but this is it though, isn't it? It just says everything,
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Who knows? Oh, it'd be great to
Yeah.
speak. It'd be great. I'd love to speak to Nico as well. That'd be just amazing.
Yeah.
I wouldn't know what to say to him. I'd be like,
That'd be your fanboy moment.
It would be, unless I went, "Oh, it's all right, Goose," and I talked a bit, tried to do an impression of him. I couldn't do that. No, it wouldn't be fair. It'd be amazing to do. But this is the whole reason for doing these podcast interviews, is for people like yourself to be able to talk about your experiences. And it's been amazing, Lee, today, and I could talk to you for hours about stuff. I really could.
I do like to talk, so you could be here for a while.
No, mate, I could. It's just brilliant. And yeah, it's been a real blast today. Like,
That's been a lot of fun.
It has been a lot of fun. I'm hoping, and I've said to Jeff about this and a few of the others, I'm hoping to do a drum show next year. And I did one like before COVID hit. I did one, and I got a guest drummer to come and have a little talk about their kit, and they all that sort of thing. Is that maybe something you might fancy coming and doing and showing off your dualist kit and everything? Would that be something perhaps you might?
Yeah, that sounds like it could be fun. I'm sure Kevin Mackey used to be on board with that as well.
That'd be amazing. Yeah, that'd be really cool. Well, maybe we'll talk some more about that whilst we're not recording, if you like. But that would be a really cool thing to do, because I think it's just allowing people to hear stuff, and it's that new generation of drummers that we're talking about,
Definitely. Well, that's the thing. I mean, it's always nice if you can do something that's going to encourage that. You know what I mean? I mean, been very blessed. I've had a great career in music, and it's, if you can put something back and try to inspire, the kids coming through now, that's important. It's, I think that's why I kind of enjoyed the teaching side of it, because it's kind of, I think if you've had like a little bit of success doing something, you can say, well, look, don't let anybody tell you it can't happen, because, it can, if you work hard, things can happen, and you can use yourself as a kind of sort of benchmark and go, look, I did it, I sort of got to a certain point, you know what I mean? And just by hard work and, a bit of good luck along the way as well, you can't discount that, because you do need a little bit of luck as well.
Yeah, and it's meeting people who are of a similar mindset, and all of those sorts of things, and like you said earlier on as well, it's about not being a dick. It's about being nice people. It makes all the difference, doesn't it?
Well, if you get work and you do a good job and you get on with everybody, sort of, there's always a chance I'll come back and ask you to work with them again. I mean, I can't be doing with egos and bad attitudes, because there's no need for it. It's a very, if you get the fortunate situation where you can make a living from music, it's a wonderful thing. So, it doesn't make you any better than anybody else. I don't understand these, the guys like these massive egos. There's no need for it,
No, I completely agree. On that note, Lee, I'm going to say thank you so much for this afternoon. It has been an absolute blast.
You're welcome, sir.
Fella. It's been amazing. Maybe we'll have a part 2 at some point. That'd be quite cool.
Well, if you've got boredom to fall asleep after this first one, then we'll do another one. We'll do bedtime stories for kids.
We could do that. Or maybe what we do is, if we get the chance to come and see you do one of the shows, is maybe we can do like a tour of the kit and maybe do something like that. That might be fun.
Yeah, that'd be good.
That might, something a bit different. And maybe, chat with your drum tech as well and ask him what it's like working with you.
That won't take long. You probably just hate it.
That'd be amazing. That would be really good.
Fantastic,
awesome.
Like a
all right, Lee. Thank you so much, fella. Super. Really appreciate it. You take care, bud.
You like, Al.